get down to the final two market days of the current week in April that started on Monday the 15th. Today is the 18th. Thursday, welcome everyone to the show. If you look at the markets and you begin to see a bit of a green shoot across frontier Africa, on Wednesday, we came back from a very brutal Tuesday for the Nigerian markets to advance by 10 basis points. That was nowhere near roughly 2% that the market lost on the previous session. The banking sector index came back about 1.1% positive. Their cousins, the insurance, came back yesterday by half a percent. That was not enough in terms of turnover value. The number of transactions and all of that were much below Tuesday a sell-off. So we'll see how things go today. You can see the index is still below the 100,000 new reading that it crossed when the market was red hot towards the end of last year and early this year. The BRVM lost 0.61%. The Egyptian market came back with 0.91% after a sharp fall on Tuesday. The Nairobi stock market still in the red, 0.29%. The GSE down by just one notch on Wednesday. The Zimbabwe stock market pulled back by about 1.5%. The markets there, investors are still adjusting to the rebasing of the stock market due to the introduction of the new currency, the ZiG. In Mauritius, the market was up 0.08%. Just a rough some gains, some losses across some of the markets we cover on the continent for you. Let's move on and check through East Africa, and that's where some of the headlines are coming through. First, for that region, with Kenya selling about his stake in Hilton hotels in Nairobi, that iconic hotel in which the government is selling off about 2 billion shillings worth of his stake as part of the privatization program that was announced a couple of months ago by the Ruto's administration. The government is selling off some hotels and a few other companies just to get government out of the way and allow the private sector to take the commanding heights of these companies. There are about 11 or so of them that have been done in tranches, and this is just one of them in Nairobi, a couple of them also in Mombasa and elsewhere around the country. In Uganda yesterday, businesses were shut down in major cities and towns in Uganda because the business owners and the retailers, merchants were complaining the new level of higher taxes they got to pay to the government and the revenue collection strategy and whatever being deployed to collect revenue from businesses. So there were those protests yesterday. We also saw some news through from Zanzibar, as it were, in terms of what is going on down there. Smile, everyone, to the camera, because Vodacom Tanzania has finally acquired complete the acquisition of Smile Communications for about roughly 69 billion Tanzania shillings. The deal is now done, signed, sealed, and delivered. Meantime, Tanzanian government under President Suluhu Hassan is looking to downgrade the official vehicles of district commissioners. The news is that the official vehicles, which is an SUV, will be downgraded to Toyota Prado, part of the cost-cutting measures that President Suluhu is pursuing over the last 1 year or so, cutting some overseas trips and a few other things just to keep a leaner government and get enough more cash on the table to support our socio-economic transformation of the East African economy. The latest is that those district commissioners, those government officials will use, some very nice vehicles, but perhaps not as expensive as the previous ones that they have. I'm sure we could do a lot of more of such. We'll see more of that in a number of frontier African economies, by the way. Just cut down a little bit some of these fatty parts of governance, as it were, so that we can keep a leaner government, and of course, there's a whole lot of debt to pay, inflation to deal with, and what have you. So let's move on to West Africa, where good news came in through that the Nigerian Port Authority has secured $700 million from Citibank to expand two of the country's largest seaports in Apapa and Tinkan Island. In the meantime, the central bank governor, Olayemi Cardoso, says the the central bank is not interested in intervening or defending Naira. It says so far about $1 billion has so far been traded at the FX window, and that additional $600 million came in just a few days ago to support the country's FX reserves. He was speaking and taking questions from the Africa Affairs Department Director at the IMF, Abebe Emre Selassie, at the spring meetings of the World Bank IMF yesterday evening in Washington, D.C. Then he took questions from the audience, which of course included the journalists who were there. Cardoso spoke to transparency and credibility and return of trust in Nigeria's central bank. Then you got the Nigerian Breweries yesterday briefed the press about its forthcoming annual general meetings and spoke about the plan to buy 80% of Distell Nigeria, which is a subsidiary of South Africa's Distell Group, and says that the company is awaiting final approval from the South Africa's Reserve Bank to complete that acquisition, which will help Nigerian Breweries expand its product offering in Nigeria, Africa's most populous economy, into wines and spirits. It's also looking to do a 600 billion naira local rights issue to existing shareholders to try and deleverage its books, which is currently laden with about 500 billion naira in debt from last year, due largely to FX naira devaluation and exchange rate problems. Let's move on to Ghana, where Kwasi Agyei has been appointed the new controller and accountant general for Ghana. It's part of the retweaking of the finance and accounts and revenue authority that President Akufo-Addo is doing. And good news for Bloom Africa Holdings in West Africa, with footprints in Sierra Leone, in the Gambia and Liberia, as banking and other financial services under its belt. FEDA, the Fund for Export Development in Africa, which is a subsidiary of the Afreximbank, just announced some investments in that West African financial services company. Let's move on quickly and touch on in Sudan, Africa. And of course, we've got a couple of grounds to cover. Zimbabwe's central bank governor says there will be no more printing of the new currency, the ZiG, unless the country has the reserves to back the printing of such currency. So what happened on the street right now is enough to move the country forward. In the meantime, Zambia will need about $900 million, roughly $1 billion, to deal with droughts. Impact on farming and agricultural products for this year. That's what the news had overnight. Zambia's President Hichilema recently declared a national disaster and emergency in the southern African country. We've seen similar stories playing out in Zimbabwe, in Malawi, and parts of South Africa. In the meantime, Volkswagen says it's going to invest 4 billion rand in its Kariega plant in South Africa just to keep the business going. And good news also, as South Africa has been ranked as among the top 3 in financial or fiscal transparency globally amongst central banks. Yesterday, a press briefing held in Lagos unveiled Jack Ma's Africa Business Heroes Award for 2024. Entries are now open to African business entrepreneurs to be part of that. About $1.5 million is on the table from Jack Ma's Foundation for African business entrepreneurs to excel in whatever they're doing. And Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed National Food says it's done $30,000 investment into an egg layer project for the company, and part of what the company is doing moving forward to make sure there's enough eggs within the country as part of the nutrition that Zimbabwe really needs. Let's finish off in North Africa. If you've been following closely the spring meetings of the World Bank and the IMF currently going on in Washington, the Egypt's finance minister, Mohamed Maït, was speaking to one of the directors of the IMF in charge of Middle East and Central Asia, or North Africa and Central Asia, yesterday, Jihad Zaho, about the recent macroeconomic reforms that has brought some stability to North Africa's biggest economy, that's Egypt. You had a very lengthy session. And of course, 2 questions also from the audience. In the meantime, Egypt's merchandise exports was up 5.3% in the first quarter of January to March, while Morocco is likely to post 3% growth this year, according to the IMF, despite inflationary headwinds against the North African economy. And finally, that green power project that's expected to go under the sea from Morocco to United Kingdom, which is the X-Links project, could cost up to 30 billion US dollars. And that's the latest news. That X-Links project was unveiled also to investors, and the African investors at the 2023 Intra-Africa Trade Fair in Cairo, Egypt. So you can read up more on this very key projects on energy between Morocco and United Kingdom just across the sea. And that's your headlines for this Thursday on Frontier Opening Bell. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.